We will now have two keynote speeches, the first of which will be on sustainability in the fashion business. We will have speaking in this keynote Mr. Martino Scabiaguerini, Group President of EMEA of VF Corporation, and the journalist Marina Lalovic.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me? Hello. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm honored to be the part of this V20 summit. So important and crucial goals that are being launched so far. And as it is been told, now we have approximately half an hour to tackle a huge field with regards to environment. And we are just a couple of weeks towards a so-called COP26 summit, UN summit in Glasgow. So as you might know, it has been postponed because of the pandemic. So and there are lots of individual goals, how to change on the individual level to tackle the environmental change. And today we are going to tackle this issue with these huge two industries, which are also responsible for the huge pollution. We are talking about the fashion industry and real estate industry. As it was mentioned, my first guest is Martino Scabiaguerini, so welcome. I will present him. He's a representative of VP Corporation Group, which is, as you might know, one of the biggest fashion industries and companies in the world. And afterwards, with me, there is going to be Barbara Cuminelli, who is CEO of GLL, which is one of the also biggest companies with regards to real estate. Before entering into discussion with Martino, I would like just to put on the floor some of the numbers which might help us to understand why this field is so important when we are talking about the sustainability, which is a bit of a core of the values we are tackling today. So, as I said, it is important to talk about the fashion industry because it is one of the world's biggest polluters. So, and the numbers are talking why we are considering this sector as a pollution sector. The fashion industry accounts for about 10% of global carbon emissions and almost 20% of waste of water. It also uses up more energy than the aviation and shipping industries combined. These are some of the data that I'm taking from the UN climate change. Another also data is that each year over 100 billion items are produced globally using thousands of different chemicals, and 3 out of 5 items end up in landfill or garbage in 12 months. So these are some of the numbers which might, help us also to concretely understand why it is inevitable to talk about the fashion industry when we are talking about the environmental issues. So my first and very maybe complex question with the time we have to Martino Scabiaguerini is, considering that today we have a privilege to have you as a representative of one of the hugest fashion industries, how do you tackle the sustainability issue within the company, and how does it change, also considering the time frame and the historic moment we are living in? So pandemic, something has changed in our mindsets and also in terms of production. So sustainability and your work, what does it mean?
So good day, everyone. Thank you, Marina. I need to step back and then I'll be very concrete as well.
Please.
So let me reframe it a little bit. Who we are. VF is a 122-year-old company. It's a public company. It's Standard & Poor's 500. We're globally present in 170 countries, and we are 40,000 people. So to a certain extent, I'm using this number. We also produce more than 1 million units every day. So we have the opportunity to play a role. Yes, we have the opportunity to have an impact and to do something good, right? So sustainability is part of a broader vision. So many companies went to define their purpose in the last 10 years, something that probably didn't exist until a while ago. And our purpose is very clear. We want to power movements for active and sustainable lifestyle to have an impact on the betterment of people and planet. And some of the key words are already embedded there. So it's about sustainable and active lifestyle. So it's about the outdoor, the nature, the communities, the work that we can do around well-being, dignity, and workers. On the other side, there has to be an impact, right, on the planet and on the people, to your point. So it starts with a purpose. It goes through the values of the company, and actually we've been talking about those values all morning because our 5 values are very connected to what I heard today. It's about integrity, but also it's about curiosity, it's about empathy, and it's about, at the end, the courage of perseverance. And I believe today, more than ever, the new generations are telling us, more than our choices, what they want to see, what they want to listen to. And then the values become culture. And the culture defines what you do. And not only what, but the how. So now we're very focused on the how. And I think, I want to highlight 2 things. On one side, this principle, turning the mindset, impacting 40,000 associates, their families, their community, and all the people working around this company. So it is a broader reach. On the other side, how we connect with what I call the zeitgeist, really the spirit of these new generations that are clearly telling us what is the global agenda. Mm-hmm. And as a apparel and footwear company, we interact with these generations. They are also consumers. So one day they consume, the next day they protest. And anyway, they're clearly telling us their choices and why they're making certain choices. So, I'll get to the concrete facts. As corporations or big brands globally, we have a responsibility to be very clear about what our choices and commitments are. And through the brands, consumers make ultimately social choices, in order to see what a brand stands for, what they really do, about their commitments. And that's why I think sustainability is part of all this. In the old days, I don't want to preempt the question, but in the old days there was CSR, right?
Corporate social responsibility.
And that was absorbing a lot of intense focus. Today we've been trying to be more holistic around that. So today we speak about ESG, environment, social responsibility, and governance. Mm-hmm. And the word governance is important because ultimately is the bridge to build something on a bigger scale, on a larger scale, because it goes through the company, through the consumers, and hopefully through the system, so society, politics, and so on. So I'll stop here 1 second,
okay.
But it's important that I underline the fact that we committed to a long list of science-based targets. So we can mention a few of them.
Yeah, we will.
And on the other side, we're investing in what we call Made for Change, which is a 3-pillar strategy to have an impact on the planet and the people. So there are very concrete investments and targets that we are achieving and continue to achieve. Most of them are actually syncing with the Paris Climate Conference, and they want to sync with what I think the most important broader targets are and have been decided.
And as we were mentioning, this is a time frame very crucial to tackle these issues because we are approaching the summit and we are just being witness of what you were talking about, the younger generations. And for instance, I can mention the famous quote, of course, of Greta Thunberg, who is saying, I'm exhausted of this, blah, blah, blah. I want concrete examples. So let's jump into concrete examples. Yeah. So you were really, in a very concrete way, explain the inevitable evolution from CSR, corporate social responsibility, and how this, let's say, purpose is finally approaching to performances. Mm-hmm. So let's put on the floor some concrete examples of such a huge company that you're representing.
Yeah, so the purpose-led, performance-driven, as we say, right, way of working has to walk both legs, right? And on one side, I'll give you a few concrete examples, right? We're eliminating all single-use plastic packaging, mm-hmm. By 25. So 25 is tomorrow. And believe me, since we produce, almost 400 million units a year, that's a huge number, achievement. Yeah. We're reducing Scope 1 and Scope 2 emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, right, by 55% from 2017 to 2030. This is exactly meeting the Paris climate decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's a long way to go because it's not only about what we do, Scope 1, but it's also about all the system around us, the Scope 2. So the factories working for us in more than 70 countries and so on. And the third one, because you started from the industry, which we know, we are 42% of our, let's say, carbon impact is driven by materials. So we need to address the materials because it's half basically of our impact, our emission. So we have a science-based target there, very important, to be basically using our top 9 materials that we used. You can imagine which one, from cotton to others. They basically represent 85%, so most of these emissions. We're committed to do 100% of this material by 2030 to be completely regenerative, renewed, recycled, or responsibly sourced. So this is a very huge investment in technologies and different way of working on our side. And last, maybe I just want to mention, because it's a very big news nowadays with all the port congestion, the freight forwarding. You know, we move these goods around the world. So right now, for instance, in Europe, 30% of the units that we sell in Europe are produced in Europe. It wasn't that case 10 years ago. So there's a shift back into also making sure that there's a local relevance for local and bringing production back where consumers are using and consuming. So that's an important piece in such a big scheme. And by the way, our distribution centers around the world are all zero waste facilities today. So we've made a lot of investments, and we are committed to do even more. But that's really, I think, part of our purpose. And that's why
this is
so
very
important.
useful also to concretely understand what is moving forward, what has changed comparing to the past. And you put on the floor a very important segment, which are the new consumers, new generations. New generations are, we mentioned Greta Thunberg, but there are generations of people who are environmentally aware of the issues, and they look of the origins of clothes comparing to the past. Let's mention another survey. 67% also, according to UN climate change survey, of shoppers now consider environmentally friendly fabrics when choosing a brand. It also seems that the major barrier are the prices, of course, of production, of clothes. So there are lots of, let's say, doors to be open in this segment. But what I wanted to ask you also, we just heard about VE Cube, new goals, purposes, new generations. How do you think to address these new needs for the new generations to come?
I think it's embedded in the relationship. Sometimes we say our task is really to lead a dance between brands and consumers. And when you dance, you need to lead the way, but then you have to let it go and listen to consumers and what they tell you and how you transform yourself according to that. So I believe in this specific, it's really important. One thing is the listening side. Brands have been leading their vision top down for many years. Now it's the speed and the transparency of the digital acceleration have brought that back the other way around. So to a certain extent, the pandemic, with all the terrible implications, but was a shortcut in digital acceleration. And digital brings speed and transparency. And consumers are now allowed to be inside the brands and the companies in a completely different way. They're part of the conversation.
They are so-called prosumers, almost.
Absolutely. And honestly, we consider a lot. And I speak broader. I'm not saying VF is a role model or is a fantastic company, others are not. In our industry, there are more and more companies that are addressing this clear consumer voice telling us how to change. So honestly, if I have to maybe bridge a little bit to what also has been called like a bridge to a brighter future that the V20 is trying to really achieve, consumers have been waking up the companies and the brands. I think companies and brands in our industry and probably in others are now doing many more things than before. At the same time, you need the last step. And I now connect with your question around not only the price or the cost of sustainability, but how it gets adopted to a broader, larger scale. We are part of the equation now. We're definitely doing more. The whole system has to now wake up and do much more. The infrastructure, the technology investments, the opportunities for us to be more accessible and to a certain extent, create a shorter gap into the future about solving that equation. But sometimes I say imperfection will be there as long as speed is increasing. And really that's somehow the way we try to think. It's important to keep moving, not waiting for a true perfection, but understanding what consumers want today and making sure that we do it in a little faster time frame.
And to be maybe on the same level with the awareness of consumer that is waking up, and to be aware of the consumer. And I will put on the floor just the last element, which is the fast fashion. No, this is the main element of the pollution of the fashion industry. So how to overcome fast fashion in terms of prices, because it's inevitable that we are tempted to buy something that is cheaper 10 times than something that is luxury and maybe produced on an environmental friendly level. But if we can't afford this is the huge barrier to overcome. So
Yeah.
this is definitely the new chapters in order to make sustainably in the environmental level, but also in a price level to be sustainable and affordable, which is corporate social responsibility. Thank you so much.
Can I close
Yes,
on one
please.
thing? I think the biggest opportunities lie ahead, and we have to stay positive, right? I truly believe in the change of the culture. You know, as we shift from people first, you know, pandemic, health, safety, to people focused, really, you know, diversity, inclusion, sustainability. One key aspect of that is the diversity in thinking. Nowadays, I just mentioned fast fashion. H&M, which is the largest group of fast fashion today, the new CEO is a woman, and she used to be the head of of CSR in the group. So she's bringing a complete different vision inside the company. I met with her, and she's really driving it. I think we're really going to see something stronger and faster in the future in terms of tackling these opportunities from our industry. And I stay positive of the new generation's message, because usually it's the right one. So we need to stay connected to that and really listen and act fast. That's our responsibility, I think, in this kind of environmental initiatives.
Yeah, and you are mentioning H&M, which is the really inevitable and the crucial to mention when we are talking about the environment and fashion industry.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Martino Guerini, for
Thank you.
so briefly explaining such a huge element and such a huge field when we are talking about the environment. You can stay here with me, or maybe you can join us in the public, because now we are opening the second chapter, huge one as well, from fashion industry to real estate companies. So my second guest is joining me, I think, online right now, Barbara Cuminelli. I don't know whether she's already, hello, welcome.
Here, hi.
Hello, pleasure to meet you online, welcome. I will briefly present Barbara. She's CEO of GLL, a company specialized in real estate consultancy, and not only. This is the giant, as we were talking before about the fashion industry, this is the giant in terms of real estate companies. So I will just briefly mention some other elements, as I did before, with regards to sustainability and what has changed in this pandemic year when we are talking about real estate companies. Actually, in this pandemic year, maybe real estate awareness of consumers changed the most. So the people started to think about where to live, maybe to shift from the urban areas towards the countryside, to re-elaborate maybe the way and where we are living. And this combines very constructively, maybe, with some of the examples I will put on the floor in order to tackle our next discussion. So we were talking about the fashion industry, which was one of the most polluting one, but the real estate industry is also not kidding, let's say, in this way. So buildings currently represent 39% of global greenhouse emissions, according also my source is UN data. Almost 1/3, so we are talking about 28% of the global total, is the result of running buildings, so already constructing, referred to as operational emissions, while 11% comes from building materials and constructions. So my first question with Barbara will be also a very, huge and complex one. How do you tackle and what does it mean to be sustainable today, according that you are representing GLL, the huge company in this sector? What do you do and what does it mean to be sustainable in real estate today in 2021?
Thank you. Thank you. As you mentioned, the built environment accounts for a huge portion of carbon emissions. And for this reason, we spent the past 15 years maybe making our own commitments while delivering the services to clients. So in practical terms, we have set the target to achieve net zero by 2040, encompassing all our greenhouse emissions. And this includes not only our operation, but our job is to manage facilities, manage offices, manage industrial sites for our clients. So for us, the 95% of our emissions are our client emissions. So our commitment to net zero includes also supporting a large number of clients achieve their own ambitions in terms of net zero by 4040, as I mentioned. And we're very active. We signed the World Green Building Council net zero commitment, pledging only to occupy offices which are near net zero carbon in our operation by 2030. So we plan to be more green in-house, and then at the same time, but with a slightly, let's say, longer framework, support our clients. At the moment, we are one of the high-level champions of COP26, so we are co-leading the real estate framework for net zero. And of course, it's a huge task because you mentioned that the built environment represents a huge portion of emission, but unfortunately, in Europe, 75% of the buildings are highly inefficient from an environmental performance viewpoint, highly inefficient. In countries like Italy, where we are, it's actually 85. And more or less 90% of the stock of buildings we have will be with us in 2050. So there is a huge urgency to do, I mean, I'm simplifying, but two things. The first one is requalifying all the stock. And this is something that is also supported and pushed by the EU renovation wave. One of the pillars of the European Green Deal is this EU renovation wave that has as an objective to cut the emissions of the real estate or the ecosystem of real estate by 60%, which is a huge, huge challenge because normally only 0.2% of the buildings every year with restructuring and requalification reach the 60% emission cut that we are setting as a target. So it's a very, very big challenge that, of course, we need to tackle as an ecosystem. And the second big point is the urban regeneration, because it's true that the pandemic has changed our habits, but to be honest, we still see today 55% of the world population lives in cities, and the trend is that 75% will live in city by 2050. This means that we need to accommodate another 2.5 billion of people in our cities, and that's why regeneration is so important. We don't want to use new soil. We really need to regenerate areas of the city, especially the one which are more which are not central, the one that are not wealthy as well. So I think that we're all talking now about this new model of the city, a city that is more polycentric, not only everybody, all of us not going to the center in the morning to work and then going out for living, but it should be different poles inside the cities.
And something is being changed, I think, with these possibilities of course, home working, let's call it the working at a distance, like more precisely. Thank you very much, Barbara, for mentioning one, of my opinion, crucial stuff with regards to also cultural differences when we are talking about real estate. Because, for instance, I'm coming from the Balkans originally, and one of the most astonishing things when I'm coming to Rome, or when I live in Rome, but when I'm comparing the place where I live and where I'm from, is the changings in terms of real estate. When you go in some parts of the world, everything is changing. Like on a monthly basis, every 6 months, the cities are changing, building, rebuilding. While in Italy and in Europe, like let's say Western Europe, everything somehow stays the same, but it doesn't mean that is more environmental friendly. As Barbara was mentioning, maintenance of all the buildings and the real estate structure is the part of the program. So this is also culturally very important to distinguish. And I wanted to ask you, with regards also the company, inside your company, let's talk about also age of the workers, fair play, insurance policies. What were the major difficulties also to emphasize these goals in terms of sustainability? What are the major issues to overcome in order to, let's say, combine this purpose with performances also here in this sector?
Right. For us, sustainability is a priority, not only in terms of our commitment to net zero, but in terms of business. So if you want, it's kind of easier because For us, we also have a global business unit providing sustainability services to our clients. So our objectives, our mission is really to shape the future of real estate for a better world. And clearly sustainability is a key component of this mission. So for us, going back to your point, actually it's very exciting to have the opportunity to offer to young people, diverse people, a role that is really focused on supporting our clients and becoming more green. And we see a lot of enthusiasm in terms of people willing to embrace this new position, these new roles. So I have to say that the problem here, as usual, is to find the right talent. No? We're all in the middle of a talent war, and so that's probably the big issue. In general, then I have to say that there is a big focus in the company to transform. I am an example. Other people, I come from technology, and I've been in real estate. This is my 11th month, and like me, we are really trying to make the organization more diverse, more inclusive in terms of gender, in terms of background, in terms of ethnicity, in terms of age. And I think that this is what is helping us in seeing and trying to shape the future of real estate, because it used to be a very traditional industry. Today, with the challenges that we are mentioning, the new cities, new way of living, new way of working, shopping, sustainability, it's a very exciting place to be. So this is what we are trying also to convince all the young generation to join us and the rest of the industry, because it's very exciting.
And of course, also when we are talking about the real estate industry, as we were talking before about the fashion industry, the question of prices is also the crucial in order to be more sustainability friendly. My last question was...
It is very true, if I can underline what you're saying and echo your point, because the new city doesn't only need to be more smart, more interconnected, more green, needs to be more inclusive in the sense of affordable.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of investments right now going into affordable housing projects, student housing, senior housing. I think this is also part of the investors' ESG type of commitment. Now, this is more the S and not the E of the ESG commitment of the industry, but this is for sure a crucial priority, affordability.
Yes, and here we can say that we have an opportunity finally to think about different materials, different kinds of concrete, different methodologies that make the process safer, smarter, and obviously from a carbon perspective more efficient. My last question, is that achievable?
It's the future again offers a lot of possibility. For example, there are now materials like graphene, carbon nanotubes, Kevlar, that are very promising in terms of reducing the pollution and also being more flexible, resistant, not losing more resilient, if you want. And I think that we really need to accelerate. I can echo what was said in the previous panel. The point here is to go fast. And this is a race that we will win if we try, experiment, go faster. And the technology is a crucial part of this journey, because clean tech and green tech, they go hands in hands. The example of the material I've done before are just few examples, but we also have the digitalization of the built ecosystem is another big driver of change. And talking about IoT, VR, AR, data in general. So this is another driver that will accelerate, and probably we need to be digital in this journey. Going fast, we will make some errors, we will not be perfect, as it was said before, but we need to run.
And we have to keep awareness fertile, let's say. Let's combine these two concepts. And also I will just conclude with the fact that, okay, the individual actions are important, awareness is important, but it's nothing without the governance policies and afterwards with the companies that are following those ones. Thank you so much, Barbara Cuminelli, for joining us. And hope to meet you in person soon.
Sure, thank you.
I will underline CEO of GLL, a company specialized, one of the biggest companies specialized in real estate consultancy. So thank you so much for your attention and hope to meet you soon. And yes, and stay here for another meetings because the day is long and very fertile and very, very interesting. Thank you.